Hey guys, so we're going to
Hello.
get started in 1 minute. We are very excited to talk to Dan and Eric about the wholesale formula, and we'll be starting in 1 minute. Let anyone else, any punctual people arrive soon enough. All right, let's see. So we're recording now. Hi guys. Welcome to the call.
Good to see you, everybody. Hope you're having a good week. Happy Monday. I can't believe it's already, what is it, February? Like deep into February already?
Almost middle of February. Yeah. So I wanted to introduce you guys to Dan and Eric. These guys are the founders of the Wholesale formula. And I haven't met these guys in person, but we probably met online about a year ago. I actually met one of their business partners. Yeah, I don't know how to change that over. Spotlight video.
Okay.
I met one of their business partners, Dylan, and we met at a mastermind. We are private label sellers, and we were very surprised to hear that there was someone who was selling on Amazon who was not selling private label, who was actually doing better than we were in numbers. And so I pulled him aside and I said, "What are you doing?" And he told me about Wholesale. So introduced me to Dan and Eric, and I wanted to introduce you to them. Hopefully they, yeah, I see Eric. And hi guys, thanks so much for coming on the call.
You have actually you have me for sure, Eric. Dan, I was trying to get. He's calling me on the telephone. He's having some technical difficulties, so I'm not certain if he's going to make it or not. He's yeah, we were actually done it. We're not at the office. This is a little later in the evening for us. So he's at his house and I'm at my house, and so I guess he's having some difficulties at home, unfortunately.
We appreciate you guys taking time out of your evening to do this. You want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we can kind of jump into it?
Sure. So, Dan and I started, selling on Amazon, doing retail arbitrage, going out and buying products to resell, buying them at a lower price and resell online. And we did that for a couple of years. And then it was just taking too much of our time. We had to go out and physically leave our area to go to shopping around the area. So we were away from our families on the road. So we started buying products at what we call wholesale, what people would call wholesale modeling, and so we were getting the product shipped to us. The margins, we were trading maybe a little higher margin products, but for higher velocity, we're selling more products each month. And so yeah, that was, I want to say, in July of 2014, and we've been 100% wholesale ever since then.
Wow. Did you ever do private label before that, or you started as
just
retail arbitrage?
We started as retail arbitrage. We did try private label. It did not. It didn't work well for us. It wasn't in our wheelhouse. It didn't resonate really well with us. We did try it. We had some products were successful, some others weren't. It wasn't our passion. It didn't take off for us. And we tried several other different models and things that didn't stick to for us. And wholesale was finally what did.
That's really interesting. So a lot of the folks in our audience are private label, or they're aspiring private label. They're about to start a business. They want to start a business, or they already have. And some of the challenges that we run into as private label sellers, and that's pretty much all we've been doing for the past 5 years, 4.5 years, almost 5. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Some of the challenges in that, I mean, it's been a blessing, but like, lead time. So like ordering inventory from China, if we're sourcing from China or from India or Pakistan or you name it. And, different countries and different manufacturers in different countries. First, you have the language barrier. You're dealing with manufacturers and suppliers that you've never met. And there's that whole fear factor of starting a business, dealing with people that you don't know and all that. And the language barrier. And then on top of that, you've got like these lead times where it can take 60 days sometimes to produce inventory and then get that on a boat. And then literally a slow boat from China can take 45 days to get into Amazon. And so
without the promise that it'll even sell.
But that's, as far as selling on Amazon, that's all we've done. So we've just been doing it. And then we found out about, this course last year. And I'd actually like to give a little bit of a success. Based on the course, we actually landed kind of a version of wholesaling. It's not quite 100% wholesaling, but I can't name any names because we have a confidentiality agreement with them. But we're actually, we partnered up with a big company, and they said, we want to give you our inventory and have you guys run Amazon for us. So we kind of took the course as an inspiration and pulled in this interesting client, and it's been very, very fun.
Yeah, using some of the stuff that you teach about how to secure, how to secure wholesale accounts, and, PowerPoint presentation that you guys had.
So, let me, there we go. Sorry about that.
We have to unmute Dan. Okay. Eric.
I think I'm back. Have you got me back now? Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, the thing is I want to touch on when you're talking about all those, unknowns about starting private label and the slow turnaround and things like that, and how daunting it can be starting your business. And I'll tell you this, we were well established in our business when we tried it, and it was still pretty daunting even then. Just as you said, not knowing if the product will sell, and we said, by any standards financially, it was misfortune for us. But overall, like everything that we learned, the things we learned that we liked, the things we learned that we didn't like, some of the rules we learned, we're still obviously making dividends and returns to this day. But yeah, we did, for those reasons, some of those reasons you mentioned is why it didn't really resonate for us, as well as the wholesale model, because we do 99% of our products are sourced domestically. So the lead time is, just generally shipping across the country. If, whatever, parcel or even a pallet, still you're talking about a week tops. And so, the lead time is there. We generally only have to buy a 30-day supply. I know with private label, generally you have to either buy, larger runs or pay significantly more per unit for smaller runs, therefore eating up your margins. So we get to buy just 30-day supplies and then just reorder since our suppliers are generally domestic.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm here. I didn't know if I could be heard.
Yeah. Hi.
Quite well.
I don't know if it was you, but someone unmuted their phone, and we got a lot of.
Sound like a lullaby.
Let me see if I can find it.
Right there.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good. Is there a way to do it where the person is speaking?
I don't know.
This is a different control panel that I have on mine. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so Dan, we're going to switch over to Dan. Let Dan kind of introduce. Hi, Dan. I'm going to make video. The big part of
There it is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, man. So, where are you calling? First of all, thank you for being on the call and taking time out of your evening. You're in Mountain Time, Central Time?
Eastern.
Eastern time. Holy cow! It's bedtime for you. We'll keep it short then.
But yeah, I could hear Eric. I couldn't talk. They said, but my microphone wasn't working, so I'm good now though.
Cool.
That's it. It's working now for sure.
We can barely hear Ari.
Oh shoot. Okay. I'm trying to move far enough back from the computer where it can catch both of us, and I guess there's some microphone issues. Awesome, Dan. Well, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you came into wholesaling, and we can just kind of anything you guys want to talk about, really. So you heard everything on the call so far, right?
Yep. Okay. No, we got started with retail arbitrage. We tried a whole bunch, and that's the thing is Amazon makes it really easy to make money, but it wasn't sustainable for us. Like we were on the road constantly, and then we tried a bevy of other stuff, and it's we did try private label, like Eric said, and it just didn't stick for us. Like that's one of the things. I think private label has a huge upside. It's obviously a great model, but it is more challenging. Like there's just more to it to making a product actually have demand and start selling. And it's just something that once we got involved in wholesale, we just didn't experience anymore. We weren't having to, we didn't have to drive traffic to a product. We didn't have to go through those big launches. We were just able to make a purchase and go live within a week and then rely on that product's sustained demand. And then anything you do past that is just making that product significantly better. Yeah. So from that perspective, it's just it was a lot easier model for us to get into whenever we got started. And I think I think it pairs so well with private label because a lot of the private label skills, like, and whenever we first got started, like we didn't have very many skills either. Like we weren't really able to get in there and improve listings and stuff like that. Like we were more or less just becoming a seller of a product. But as we grew and we realized how important it is to add value, like we started learning those processes and learning those, those skills. But it's one of the things I truly do love about the private label audience is it's almost like it's innate there because it's so critical to be able to make your product sell. So whenever you go to the wholesale realm and you start working with these established brands and companies, like you're able to apply those skills immediately and see results without having to do all that front-loaded work to build up a huge listing. Like you don't have to go through those giant launches. You don't have to pump a ton of PPC in. You don't have to buy a big giant container of products. Like it's just more efficient to get started.
Right. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So like one of the things that people have been asking me, or I've heard is like, so you go source existing inventory from an existing, for those that don't really understand what wholesaling means, because I think in every industry there's like slight variations of their definitions. So could you just explain, what wholesaling actually means in terms of Amazon?
For sure. Yeah, it is crazy. Like if you Google it, you can literally get 30 definitions for wholesale because there's, it's in every industry. But for us, it's setting up a relationship with a manufacturer or brand owner that allows us to purchase products in wholesale quantities. So like, I think the name kind of is a misnomer because like you're selling as a retailer, right?
Right.
The only part that's wholesale really is your acquisition strategy. So it's just, instead of acquiring your products from a true factory or a manufacturer in China, the difference is you're working directly with a brand to buy generally domestic products.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I think it's good to differentiate that because traditional wholesale means I'm selling my raw materials or my product to somebody else who's ultimately going to retail it. And that's not what you're doing. You're going to be the retailer still on Amazon. You're just wholesaling it from, like you said, as an acquisition from a manufacturer. So that's good that you clarified that. So let's say you go, we'll just use can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just use an analogy. Let's say you go by, you contact, I don't know, Duracell or some big company, right? I mean, that's a silly example, but let's just say it was a good example. So you contact Duracell, you say, I want to sell your product on Amazon. And they say, good, here's a 1-month supply of Duracell. We'll have it to you in a week. We're going to give you a really good deal on it so you can make profit on Amazon. You go list your inventory on an existing Amazon listing. Now, what makes you stand out among the other 15 or 30 sellers potentially that are also selling Duracell batteries on the same exact listing? Because I think that's the thing that a lot of private label people don't understand.
Right, like that's the really big draw for private label is that you're not sharing that buy box. You're able to get 100% of the sales you build. Whereas in wholesale, it's slightly different, right? Like I'm coming onto that listing with other sellers, but you have the buy box, and what a lot of people don't necessarily know is that buy box rotation and how it works. So the way the buy box rotation works is if I'm on a listing and I have a competitive price, like I'm going to get a share of those sales. Like we can use an example of with the Duracell that you mentioned. Yeah. Let's say I'm one of 4 sellers and we're all priced at $20 as an example. Then typically what happens in the buy box is each seller of those 4 sellers is going to get approximately 25% of the buy box. Now it's going to vary a little bit. Like, maybe you get 18 and I get 22, or maybe you get 22 and I get 18, or 23 and 27 or whatever. But it's always within that really small margin for error. Like the buy box rotates among sellers. So what happens is instead of trying to, I'm able to sell through my product as part of that rotation. And that's where I think it gets pretty cool, is because you can look at the buy box and you can see, you guys, that's one of the things I really do appreciate about private label is they understand a lot of this, a lot of what's going on with the listing. Like you understand, you can look at a product and use Jungle Scout and tell how many times it's selling. Right. Now, whenever you do that, all you have to do if you're looking at a situation with a shared buy box is you see the total number of sales, and you just divide by the competitive number of sellers, and that's the amount of products that I can sell. I can expect to sell a week.
That's awesome.
Or in a given month. So let's look at it from this perspective.
Right.
Now let's say that a product sells 200 times a month total, and I'm one of 4 sellers. Roughly, my monthly order is going to be about 50 sales per month. If I don't do any improvements or anything else, I can generally expect to sell 50 a month.
Mine are locked on this side.
Okay.
Let's mute everybody and then unmute. Awesome. Okay, go ahead, Dan. Thanks. We're just trying to manage all the 24 different people on the call with muting and unmuting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So there's the rotational buy box, which is something that a lot of people don't know about because we're used to my listing, my product, get away from my buy box.
Yeah.
There's a thing.
I better have 100% buy box or something.
So this rotational thing, if there's 4 sellers on one listing, Amazon has an algorithm that will automatically allow a percentage of sales to each of those. And is there some variation in there depending on, how long you've been a seller or your feedback or any kind of other, performance metrics and things like that? Or is it always split evenly?
Sure. It's not always even. I mean, it does shift based on your metrics, but that's the actual awesome point about it too, is regardless of what your metrics are, you're still going to get a share.
Yeah.
Like in the metrics don't tend to affect it that much. What we typically see is metrics may affect it 3 to 5%.
Yeah.
So whenever, let's say that we're selling a buy box or we're selling a product with a shared buy box together. And my metrics are significantly better than yours. And it's just the both of us, and the product sells about 100 times a month. What I would expect is potentially to sell about 55, and you would probably sell about 45 in that same period.
That's awesome.
And that's it. We're absolutely crushing you in metrics.
And what's interesting about that is that most private labelers have better metrics than a big vast majority of the Amazon sellers, because we have to work so hard at building a brand new listing and maintaining our reviews and our feedback and customer service that we're used to that anyway. We're not used to sharing the buy box, so we want to keep those metrics in as close to 100% as possible. That's great.
For sure.
This is actually very, very cool.
Yeah.
So I don't have any particular strategy or agenda here.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions because I know there are specific questions that people would have.
Can I let people know real quick that if you have a question and you're on this call, on the bottom of your screen, or it might be on the right side, you should have a control panel where you can raise your hand. It's a button. And then once you raise your hand, we can see who has questions and we can unmute people.
Or you can type a question in the chat if you're not able to use your microphone.
Yeah.
I want to make a distinction real quick too about the buy box rotation and wholesale. So yeah, as you say that you do have 100% of the buy box of your product, and depending on what type of private label you're doing, but if you're the type of private label seller that just finds a generic product, makes their brand and someone else could just replicate it, could get the same product sourced from Alibaba with their brand, you're still in competition. You're in competition with everyone that decides to do that. And as it brings more people, you're still now competing for sales, not on your listing, but for everybody with a very similar thing. And here's the thing about wholesale. So those same 4 sellers or 5 sellers or 6 sellers that you're sharing the buy box, most of our products have proprietary intellectual property. The product is protected. So yes, we are sharing with the 4 or 5 or 6, or hopefully exclusive contracts, which we may get to here in just a little bit, but we're sharing those forever. Anybody that comes in, there's no competing products. It is protected by, either patent or trademark or whatever. These are the kind of products. So, if you're doing that type of private label where there's no intellectual property and anybody can just replicate it, then you're just relying on your ability to advertise and things like this to just jostle up the Amazon marketplace, because there's going to fill in with, imposters or spinoffs right underneath you. Whereas, like I said, our products are generally protected by some sort of proprietary intellectual property.
That is so good that you bring that up. And real quick, I just want to answer a question. We have some newer people on the call that are new to Amazon. Someone asked, what is the buy box? So that's when you go to Amazon.com and you're going to go buy a product and it says add to cart. Whatever the yellow button is where you can either buy it with one click or add it to cart, that's called the buy box. You probably don't even know this, but underneath that, there's usually a place where it says available from 11 other sellers or 4 other sellers or 2, whatever. So you can click that and you can actually choose the seller. So what Dan was saying was that those other sellers actually rotate through the buy box, whether you're private label or selling on someone else's. So that's really cool. And if you're a private label, you want to keep that buy box, obviously, but if you're selling with others. So you bring up a really good point, that if you're selling a patented product or an intellectual property that is not really being replicated across, you know, all of these white label, which is kind of a term that just means slapping your name on it, Me Too product, you're really only competing with the people in the buy box, which is actually a lot less competitive than even what we're doing. So, you know, we sell a kitchen gadget and we're the only ones that have our own buy box, but there's potentially 150 other sellers with almost identical products that are trying to do the same thing we're doing. It's 150 different buy boxes, but it's still competing for the same traffic. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah. All right, we've got some questions coming in, but I did want to talk about one of the things that, one of the reasons that I wanted to, you know, that I like Wholesale and I want to introduce it to people is that there are people who shared your same experience in that their private label business maybe hasn't taken off the way they wanted it to. You know, we've got, I think, a mix of people who are interested, some who want to supplement their private label, some who feel it's not taking off the way that they want to, and then some who, you know, I use the term skipped gradient. There's just too many steps to take, and there's like a very long runway to success with private label, and some people don't have either the time or the money to, or they're risk averse, and I think private label is a great solution for that, because wholesale, sorry, is a great solution for that, because you're not, you know, sourcing from China. Some people just don't want to source from China, and they stop at the product selection portion of private label, because the idea of dealing with China, you know, kind of gets them to be a deer in headlights. Sometimes they don't have the $3,000 to $5,000 to invest in inventory alone to get started. And then for some, they want to make money right away, you know, and waiting 3 months before they see the first dollar is not very, it doesn't really bolster their confidence in the business model. So introducing, you know, reverse sourcing wholesale is, I think, a great way to get around a lot of these things where, you know, we're in this private label box, and it's this idea of, you know, I'm all in, I'm gonna, you know, no plan B and whatever. But we forget that selling on Amazon isn't just private label. And so when we start thinking, you know, with this tunnel vision of, you know, I have to be successful on Amazon and think only private label, then we miss out on a huge opportunity that may be more beneficial or more suitable to what we're looking to do with our business and our lifestyle.
Here's the way I look at this, the way private label and wholesale kind of goes together. I do not look at wholesale as an opposition to private label at all. Yeah. Like, to me, because, like, I mean, you guys have seen the way we do our research. Like, it's so similar to the way that private labelers do it. Like, we look for, you know, we're looking at the same types of products. We're looking at the same types of software. Like, the difference is, to me, is private label takes, you know, private label's upside is huge. Like, you build an awesome brand and it's awesome, right? Like, it's incredible. But it takes, the investment is just bigger. Like, you have to invest more time. It takes longer. It costs more money typically on the front end. And then you have to invest a lot of time in getting your product over and things like that. Whereas with wholesale, like, whenever you're finding those private label products, like, what you're doing is you're skipping over a ton of awesome wholesale leads every time. Yeah. Like, instead, like, once you know, let's say you find your beautiful private label product and you start you place that order. Well, what happens next? You sit there for like 2 months until your product shows up, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, if instead you just took all those awesome leads that you discarded and just started contacting those companies and working with those companies using our strategies, like, those are products that you could have live in a week and be selling and making more money to fund your private label business. Like, to me, they go so hand in hand, because, like, you're doing 75% of the work when you're doing your job as a private labeler. Yeah. Like, you just got to go that last extra 25% to pick up the money. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you're able,
and you can use it. I think you guys, you know, I thought one of you guys mentioned, like, you can use it for, lead capture. You can use it to grow your list. There's a lot of different things that you can do to supplement. It's like you can even build, what your private label audience is. You can build, the supplemental wholesale business to feature, products that will benefit, say you're in the health space, and then you go after, vitamins and protein bars and, that type of thing, exercise equipment, whatever. But you can launch more products faster for cheaper and really expand. And I actually asked, I had a friend of mine, Scott Dietz is kind of specializes in selling Amazon businesses, selling internet business. I asked him about this. I said, well, what would be the benefit or the downside to adding a private label element to the business? And he said, as long as it's like, you're doing 10 to, I think he said 10 to 15% of the wholesale business, your business is 10 to 15%. Like, it's not like, maybe, 3% of your business, but you at least now have a benchmark. You go, okay, 10 to 15% of my business is going to be wholesale. And that makes it a sellable asset rather than just a distraction. He says anything less would be a distraction, but 10 to 15% of your sales come from wholesale, and and it supplements your business, and that greatly increases, especially if you get contracts or you get agreements with these companies that you're working with, greatly increases the value of your company. So we're not just talking about the cash flow that wholesale makes, but the valuation upon an exit can be exponentially larger. That's awesome. By adding that element.
If you look at one of the most awesome exits I saw was the eTails exit. Like, they got paid, in my opinion, they got paid significantly more than than I think they would have otherwise. Yeah. And it's because those contracts do hold water. Like, they're worth money. Like, that's another thing. When you start talking about exits, absolutely, it's having a wholesale contract and agreement is a sellable asset. And if you build your business with that as an asset, absolutely, it helps an exit.
Yeah.
Got a couple of questions here from the audience. One of them is, can the manufacturer do the fulfillment themselves? Say, if I sell on Amazon as a merchant. Do you understand that question?
Oh, I understand.
I mean, I can get it. Like, there was a similar question on Up. It was, they were talking about competing with the brand owner. Now, one of the things and when you come from the private label space, you're used to thinking about the brand owner as always selling the product, right? Because as a private labeler, I mean, that's what you're doing, is you're making a product to bring to market to sell it. Well, that in the vast majority of the world, that's not the case. Like, think of it from this perspective. You guys, a lot of people use Clorox, but you don't go to a Clorox store. You go to a retailer. So in that regard, like, I'm literally never, I don't have to worry about the competition with the seller. All I am is acting as an experienced retailer who can help them grow their brand. Right. So whenever you're thinking about the relationship with the brand owner, guys, don't think of it from the perspective of adversarial or conflict. What we're trying to do is we're trying to work directly with the brands so that we can help them grow their sales on Amazon by bringing some of the expertise that you guys already have. Like, all we're doing is whenever we say we're adding value to a brand, all we're doing is trying to act like a decent private label seller. We're making, listing enhancements, better pictures, and things like that. All the stuff that you guys understand makes a product sell better. That's all we do to work with a brand. And that's why I feel like a lot of the private labelers are super suited for this. And then there was I think there was another question about
here from JS about, like, do you create your own listing with Clorox? We'll just keep the Clorox analogy. So you're going to go sell a bunch, cases of Clorox bleach or bottles of bleach. So you contact Clorox somehow. You get, a pallet of their bleach sent to Amazon FBA. You are selling on an existing listing. So when you go create a new listing in Amazon, JS, or anyone who's listening, as a private labeler, you create a brand new product listing. But they always ask you to search Amazon's catalog to see if someone else is already selling that product. I'm assuming, Dan, that's what you would do. You would search that ASIN or that Clorox bleach 24-ounce bottle, enter, and then it pulls up an existing listing. you go, yes, I just bought a pallet of that stuff. I'm going to add myself as a seller. The listing is already built, and that listing now shows up in your Seller Central. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I think
it's kind of
into the reverse sourcing aspect that you guys have, which is different. The reason that your model is specifically different than what a lot of wholesalers are doing right now.
Right, like that was the part I was going to add. Is instead, like, ultimately I would, yes, 100%. That's where I land on that listing. But how I get there is a bit different. Like this is what I love about our model is I go find, I look around for products that are selling really well and meet our criteria. Then I go find whoever makes that product and I contact them to sell it. So whenever I sell that product, I am sending it to that established listing, and that's the comfort for me, is that I'm sending it to an established listing that's already performing. Like, I don't have to create my own listing. I don't have to drive traffic. I don't have to create sales or demand. Like, instead, like, by me sending it to that listing and I'm selling a product that I already can tell you sells, 200 or 500 times per month. And then even from there, I know what my equity is. So like it's, reverse sourcing wholesale takes so much of that guesswork out of it. Like, I don't ever have to wonder if my product's going to sell. I know it's going to sell because I can see the sales that's already happening, and I'm able to just tap immediately into it.
So the only challenge on this model from the way you've explained it is just sourcing the product at a low enough price where you can make a profit, and that's what you teach people how to do.
Absolutely. Right. And how do you do that? And it's by delivering value and working with the manufacturers to help them increase their presence on Amazon by doing things like listing improvements.
Because the way you're explaining it, of course, the question that would come up is, it sounds so easy and so simple that why isn't everyone doing it? And private label sounds really easy and simple. Why isn't everyone doing it? Until you actually really study it and figure out, okay, there's some steps I have to take. So from what I understand is that why isn't everyone doing it? Because there's some actual technology and some scripts, and you have to learn how to contact these guys and get an agreement to wholesale it, because otherwise people would just be walking in to the clearance rack and buying, last month's, clearance Clorox bleach and then listing it on a listing. But
well, that's retail arbitrage.
That's retail arbitrage, and that you're not going to make very much money doing that. Well, maybe you will, but it seems like.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's it. That's really like, and when we first got into wholesale, like we did the same thing everybody else does, and it's like you try to make it to be this really complicated thing, right? And it is. It's whenever you think about it from just the perspective of, I go find a product that's selling, I contact the manufacturer, I get the product, and I sell the product. Like, that's really simple, but it really is that simple. Like, the differentiator and where a lot of people get stuck in our model is, there's a lot of people that want to sell a product, and brands don't necessarily just want to work with anybody. Like, they want to work with people who can actively promote and grow their brand. Like, whenever you're talking to a manufacturer, just like in the private label community, like if I talk to you about your guys' products, like, that's your baby. I mean, that's something you're super invested in. You put your heart and soul into it. You put a lot of work, and they feel the same way. Just because they're a bigger brand that sells in stores or whatever doesn't mean they don't care. They do care about their brand, and they've poured everything they have into it. So whenever you start contacting them, you're just another face in the crown. And that's what our strategies have really dialed into, is we've gotten really good at working with manufacturers and really showing them how we can help and how we can be one of their extremely valued sellers. Mm-hmm. So it's like, from that perspective, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to be, we just want to be able to connect and show how we can add value. And I think that's the real differentiator in the model, is a lot of people struggle with that aspect.
Yeah. So if you have any experience already doing some private label or any selling on Amazon, you have value that you could add to these wholesalers, the actual companies that are wholesaling to you and retail it. Like, I know we could add tons of value to these accounts because we know so much about selling on Amazon. We coach on it, all that stuff. So yeah.
And it's interesting because that's one of the things I feel like people do a lot is you discount what you know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why is a brand, a lot of people that are watching this is probably thinking, why would a brand want to work with me? And it's because you guys are significantly more awesome than you think you are. Yeah. Like, you guys have developed these really cool skills that brands actually want. Like, they don't want to have to pay somebody to go learn this stuff. They would rather just be able to use you and let you sell their products and grow their brand. Like, they don't want to be retailers. They want to be manufacturers and marketers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the other thing is, you know, some people might think, well, why wouldn't they just sell their own products on Amazon, and, you know, why don't they just take all the sales and they just, you know, do what private labelers do, and they just have 100% of the buy box. And the thing is that it's not their model. Their model is finding ways to get into more retail stores and make more retail sales. You know, you think of I used to work in the paleo space, and you think of the paleo space, and, you know, there's some paleo stuff selling on Amazon, and there's some guys who are really going after it on Amazon, but they're very, very few. Some people aren't even on Amazon in the paleo space, and it's because their sole focus is getting into retailers, getting into, you know, Whole Foods, and getting into, you know, all of these big retailers that they're not going to spend. They don't see Amazon as an opportunity, so they kind of, you know, ignore it. So you're basically showing them, yes, it is an opportunity, and you don't have to worry about it. You focus on what you do very well, because they get into retail very well. But Amazon's a completely different language. And so, you know, you've got a lot of people who are stupid on Amazon, but really smart in brand building. And that's what you want to focus on.
You talked about it earlier too. Like, and I think you said it so perfectly whenever you said, if it's not a significant part of your business, it's a distraction. And for them, I mean, selling on Amazon would be a complete distraction. If you started talking to Clorox or, you know, a brand like that, what percentage of their sales are Amazon? Not a lot. I mean, you know, it's a minute percentage. Why would they add that distraction to their business whenever they can work with quality retailers who can already grow their brand in that channel?
Right.
Cool. We got a couple. Are we doing good? You guys okay? I don't want to overextend your time or anything like that. Well, we won't drag this on too long, but we do have some other questions. So, if someone lives outside of the U.S., can they still use this business model?
Yes, absolutely. That's, you know, it's just like that's one of the things about this world, right? Is like you can pretty much do anything with a laptop and a connection, and this is no different. Whenever you start working with brands, like, the only caveat is whenever you work with brands, they only like to operate business to business. So you need to show them that you are a business. You can either set up in your country, or you can set up in the United States, and then you're a business, and you can buy wholesale from brands.
Awesome. Sharon has a great question. Hi, Sharon, old friend of ours. So let's say you're one of the 6 or 4 sellers on a listing, and you say, you know what, I want to drive more traffic to this listing. So you go create a sponsored ad or a Facebook ad, and you want to drive additional traffic to make more sales. How does that work? And does that benefit the other sellers? Like, you don't want to just drive traffic to someone else's buy box, or the buy box when someone else has it, and use that ad.
No, you can actually just drive it to your own storefront and with the product there, and sell it with Facebook traffic. And whenever you're using Amazon, whenever you're using the Amazon sponsored ads, like, those things can only trigger if you're in the buy box. So you're never supporting other sellers, and that's not a thing. But one of the things that we like to do whenever we're doing that, let's say we're running Facebook ads or sponsored ads or something like that, is we want to show them, like, whenever we're working with a brand, we want to show them that it's our work, like, and take ownership of it, and be like, hey, we're starting this campaign. We're going to be driving a lot more traffic, just to give you guys a heads up, and here's what you can expect. And that way they know it's us. They know it's associated with us. But as far as, you're never contributing to the sales of another seller. Absolutely.
So if you invest a bunch of time in, like, sponsored ads, campaign management, keyword research, all that stuff, you can show the brand, check out my awesome stats on sponsored ads and Facebook ads or whatever, outside traffic, giveaways, what have you, ranking. I can imagine you could do similar things for ranking, you know, use super URLs and rank it like we do in private label to get it, you know, ranking for a particular keyword, and show the brand owner, like, look, we know what we're doing.
Yeah. Conversion increases.
Yeah, really show that you know how to play the Amazon game. So that's really exciting.
One of the just a recent experience with a brand, and I think you guys can really relate to this, is they had a new product releasing. And that's something we typically don't mess with unless we've already been working with that brand. Like, we don't like bringing products to market very much. I just love tapping into existing sales. But they were like, hey, man, we would really love you guys to help us with this, to get this product going on Amazon. And we took it through a traditional private label launch style launch. and it did really well. We're the exclusive seller for that product, and we did so well in the launch that they'd never seen anything like that. Like all the other sellers that they had worked with were, just they were people that bought and sold their product and didn't do anything else. They didn't understand how to add value and do those things. So when they saw that launch and how well it took off, they came back to us and they were like, "Hey guys, like, could you do this on all of our other products too?"
Cool.
Yeah, we could definitely make all of them sell significantly better. And now we're exclusive sellers for the entire line.
Good.
And that's that just goes to show you like how valuable those private label skills that you've learned actually are in another space.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Someone mentioned earlier that they're not getting a good internet connection and to contact them privately. We will be sending out a recording for this.
Yeah.
And then of course we're going to send out links to I think you guys have some additional information.
They have a free
boot camp
workshop. Yeah, free workshop that just opened today. So we'll definitely share that link, and then we'll send this video out along with a link to get involved with that free workshop.
Cool.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. Let's see. So part of your product research criteria, there is a limit number of sellers on the buy box. That's the question.
No, it's actually funny because we don't care how many sellers are on a product. We just care about our equity of sales.
Yeah.
Like, I'm splitting the buy box with 5 people or 10 people. That's not going to make a difference to me so long as I'm getting the appropriate number of sales that I expect.
Right. Also, not all sellers have equal amounts of inventory. There could be a seller who's got 3 units in stock. So technically there's 10 sellers, but only 3 of them have any amount of inventory that can make money. Is that right?
For sure. That's definitely a factor. But the way I look at it is like, let's say I look at a product and I see that it has 4 sellers. I'm going to be the 5th seller, right? So we're going to be getting approximately 20% of sales. If those 20% of sales is enough for me, like, I'm happy. The product can literally just get better from there, right? Like if I'm happy with that 20% and, like you said, maybe somebody only has 3 units in stock and they sell out really quick. Now I'm getting 25% of the sales, but that's just a benefit to me. I was happy with the 20%. So anything I can do to raise that or increase that number of sales is a benefit. But as long as I hit my expectations, like, I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good. Yeah, that's right. Do you have to make a launch? No, you don't have to launch a product, right? Like, that's one of the benefits of.
Right. Like, no, we didn't have to do, whenever I was telling the story about that launch, no, we didn't have to do it. And it was so, the fact that we did it impressed them so much that they gave us an exclusive for their entire line. Yeah. Like, that's the point is, a launch is common in the private label space, but in the wholesale space, this company had literally never even heard of it. So when we introduced them to that, it was, they literally thought we were Amazon wizards. So no, you don't have to do launches. It's just, that's one of the ways that you can add value to a brand, and if that's something they need.
Yeah. So launches are not necessary because you've got a product that's already selling. You've got a product that already has reviews, already has the traffic, and you're just kind of showing up to the party and then making it better. And the eventual goal is to gain a relationship with that brand owner so that you can become an exclusive. That does not always happen, but that is a possibility. And then you go from, taking 20% of the sales to, 100% of the sales. So that's one of the things that I think is really great is like, you don't have to launch, you don't have to rank, you don't have to get reviews, you don't have to wait 2 months for your product to arrive. And the barrier to entry as far as how much money you have to invest up front is a lot lower because the inventory, you're only buying it for 30 days.
Right. Like, whenever we buy inventory, we're buying a 30-day supply. And if I'm starting to run out, it takes me 5 to 7 days to replenish and have that stock on Amazon selling again.
Yeah. It's like David versus Goliath. It's like, with private label, you have to make the right moves. Like, one wrong move, it can be huge damage. You could lose tens of thousands of dollars, in one wrong move. You're too late to the market, or, that product didn't go like you thought it would. But with this model, you are a lot quicker on your feet because that speed to market is a lot faster. It's that 1 week, and it's that, okay, only 30 days worth of inventory. So, I'm out 30 days worth of stock. If it didn't go, if I made some sort of mistake or miscalculation, it's not as damning as it would be for a private labeler.
Right. I mean, whenever you think about it from that perspective, it's, it's with private label, like whenever you hit a home run with a brand, it's obviously really big, but you have to be ready to hit that home run, right? Like you have to buy enough inventory, you have to spend enough on ads. And when it flops, like if it flops, like the product doesn't have existing demand. Like you're the one creating that demand. You're the one driving ads and all the traffic to it to make it sell. So when it does, if it doesn't sell for whatever reason, like there's nothing that's really, it's very hard to jumpstart that product. Whereas with wholesale, like I don't have to do any of that. Like I'm literally, worst case scenario, well, on our products, like the worst thing that's literally ever happened to us is we lost like 35% on a product once. And that was the worst. Like the vast majority of the time, whenever a product doesn't go our way, we lose 5 or 10% and we just never restock it again. And, it was a minimal amount of money that we lost, and we're able to just be right back in the game. So, from that perspective, it is a lot different. Like you don't always have to be hitting home runs. Like you could just, and that's what I was alluding to earlier is, I'm fine with that 20% as long as it's enough sales to justify that. Like, I'm fine hitting singles all day long. Like if you hit enough singles, you can have a business that generates hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in profit without ever having a product that somebody, a private labeler would consider to be amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's all about volume really in this business. You got to be
Right.
researching all the time to be expanding, which is the same thing as private label, but it seems to be that you could have more steady and reliable growth with wholesale because, if you put 3 months of time into developing a product and it comes to market and it doesn't do well, then you're not having that consistent growth like you are with wholesale, where you can actually see, okay, I put more money into it and it's going to grow because you can rely on the sales, and it's, you don't have as many misses like you were saying.
Quick question from Chelsea Wynn. Cool name, Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
I like that name. She asks, if there are a lot of other sellers on the same product under a brand, you need to compete for pricing, right? So there's multiple sellers on the same product, and how does that work?
Sure. You are competing on pricing. A lot of the brands that we work with, and this is one of the things that we do whenever we come on to them, if they're not already using a MAP price, like we start working with them to develop a MAP price. And what MAP price is it's called minimum advertised price. And it's just a policy brands put in place to where they say this is the cheapest that we would like our products to be sold. So whenever you go to a listing on Amazon, like if you go right now and you just cruise around for some products, like iPhones are a product or an example of a product that has a MAP price. Like you always see them, they're always the same price everywhere you go. There's a reason for that, and that's called MAP pricing. So yes, you do compete on price, but you shouldn't have to when you start working with a brand. Like if you start working with a brand and you help them establish these policies and guidelines, like you don't have to compete on price. The price is always the same, and you're just one of 3 or 4 sellers selling that product.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Eric Young has his hand raised, so we're going to unmute Eric and let you talk. Hi, Eric.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good, man. Good to see you on the
Wonderful,
call.
wonderful. Well, I've been private labeling, as you know, for a few years, and I got into wholesale the last 6 months, and I think wholesale is probably the best thing that's ever come to Amazon. And not sure why I haven't been doing it the whole time. How's it going, guys? Going good, man. I mean, honestly, when you don't have to launch a product, you don't have to advertise a product, you don't have to give anything away. Everybody loves your product. If there's a problem, you can send them to somebody else. To me, that's a perfect business model.
Yeah.
Cool. And you don't have to deal with all the customer service, right? Because it's not your brand.
Absolutely. They do commercials. They do all kinds of things for brand awareness, and literally zero customer service. It's the perfect business model. We did it the first 6 months, and we've been doing selling stuff like more expensive item like phones and electronics and stuff like that. And it's been fun. We have had some buy box issues, but overall, I think it's probably the easiest business model on Amazon that I've ever done.
Wow. Cool. You sold me.
But with that being said, though, I'm always curious to hear what you guys are up to and hear what exactly is your edge on this particular market. Being wholesale.
What is our edge in the market?
Like, what are we getting at? What is your edge? Like, what's your approach to this in a way that takes it to the next level, I guess?
For sure. No. Number one, we start looking at the products first, and that's where we find our products. But what our edge is in this market space is, you hit the nail on the head. It is the easiest model to get involved in. But a lot of people stop there, right? Like, they stop with, this is easy. They're not adding value. They're not working with manufacturers to help them grow their brands. So instead of just being one of the sellers who come onto a listing, we are very, very communicative to the brands that we work with. So we're always looking for ways to help them grow their brands. And it's the simple things. It's like, I've literally never taken a picture in my life, but I've sent so many emails to brands about asking them about their product portfolio and their pictures, so I can enhance their Amazon list. It's just that kind of little small things. And that whenever we approach a brand, this may help you out a lot too. Whenever we approach a brand, we're always approaching them from the perspective of, we want to help you first. So we come to them with suggestions like, hey, we noticed that these things are wrong with your listing. We would love to help you fix that. Would you want to work with us? And our acceptance rates are generally significantly higher than most people's because we come from that angle. So
absolutely. That sounds amazing. I mean, honestly, I think the hardest part is finding the product, because Amazon's going to sell it for you. If you've ever done private label, that can be a headache.
Yeah, and that was another thing. I guess that would be another significant edge in the marketplace. Is we do have some pretty killer techniques for finding products and making sure that we're able to find an insane. We get a lot of leads that we're able to contact and start working with.
Well, I'm interested. I'm interested. When you get to that part, I'm interested.
Heck yeah, man. Make sure you jump in the workshop.
Let's get to that part. So I think we could answer questions all night, and I'm sure people will keep asking questions as long as we're on the webinar. So it's close to an hour. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I really appreciate your time. So let's get down to the business here. You guys have a webinar coming up. Tell us a little bit about it, how people can sign up, and
we've got a
what you
link
all
we
cover.
can provide.
Yeah, we'll provide the link, but Eric and Dan can talk about what y'all cover. And
so with our workshop, what we do is once a year we open up kind of like a behind the scenes look at how we operate our business and how you can get started with wholesale. We go into things like how we find products, how we source those products and contact the manufacturers, and additional ways that we can add value to cultivate those relationships. Like this workshop, if you are interested in selling on Amazon, in my opinion, you just can't miss the workshop. Like, I don't care if you're interested in selling wholesale or not at all. Like, just the perspective that it adds with the way that you look at products will add a ton of value to your business, even if you're 100% private label and never want to switch off at all. Like, just the way that we think about products will give you a lot of perspective about how you can improve your own products. So, as far as what this workshop is, in my opinion, one of the best opportunities for people to learn about wholesale, but more importantly, to learn about Amazon and how they can be better Amazon sellers.
That's awesome.
It's just 5 days. It's 5 days where we take literally, we're there to answer people's questions. We provide a ton of content. And it's honestly, it's the best free event I've literally ever seen.
That's awesome. And modest too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, we're the same way. Like, we know that we're really good at certain things, and I don't mind saying it. I was actually just thinking, just kind of a side note here, like Chelsea and I, we do listing optimization and copywriting for Amazon sellers. small plug if you guys are interested. And we're really good at helping people increase their conversion rate. And I'm like, that would be a freaking awesome way to contact some of these brands. Offer them like a free listing analysis or a free copywriting overhaul. Hey, look, you know, we normally charge $500 for this. Here's our stats. Would you be interested in, you know, for us to optimize your listing? And if you like what you see, if you get good results, maybe consider wholesaling to us, and we can talk about, you know, partnerships or whatever later. I just think that would be kind of an interesting in.
Yeah.
That'd be a really effective angle. I mean, that's the thing.
Because not a lot of people can offer that. With
Exactly. And you know, whenever you go with that kind of hat in hand mentality of I want to help you out first, like that's how you get the people excited about working with you. Like, you know, think about it from this webinar's perspective, right? Like, why are people here? Because you guys always provide a ton of value. Like, that's why people show up. It's why, you know, it's why the people came to watch this webinar. That's why brands will work with you. If you come with the right reasons and right mindset, people do want to work with you.
Cool.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I want to see if we can blitz a couple of these questions before we go. I provided the link to the workshop. Now it's an online workshop. So I'm going to ask, where is the workshop? It's online. So that link right there, the tiny URL link, leads you to the first day of the workshop. Today was the first day, so you can jump on over there and get caught up.
So it is a scheduled workshop. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a 5-day workshop this week. So you want to make sure to
And if you're watching this recording, because we're going to send out this video to our whole list, and you want to jump on it, we'll obviously include the link in the email.
Yep. Yeah. So
and the workshop stays up. So the way the workshop works is each day we post a video that covers a lot of the content for the day, and those videos stay up until the end of the workshop. So if you're not around, like let's say you're not around tomorrow, don't worry, you can definitely catch up on Wednesday or Thursday. But be sure to catch up. Like, that's the point, is these things do come down. We don't just leave them up forever.
So you got 5 days to get through the content, and then it's gone.
Right. And then it's, we have a Facebook group that goes along with it. And that's where you can come in and you can just ask questions. And me, Eric, Dylan, like our entire team is there this week answering people's questions.
That's awesome.
Good. All right.
Cool. Any final questions? And we got to let them go.
Yeah. So there are a couple questions. People were asking who takes care of the refunds.
Same exact process as like if you're selling a private label product.
Same as private label. Okay, good. And then asking about why don't you just fulfill yourself due to storage fees? And my understanding is that the buy box is partially contingent upon being fulfilled by Amazon, right?
That, and I just don't, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't want to work in a warehouse and I don't want products in my house. So, like, even if it were completely equal, there's literally no way I would want to fulfill my products anyway.
And storage fees are going to be lower because you're not holding on to as much inventory. When you're shipping from China, you're shipping over a month's worth of inventory. So your storage fees are a lot higher. So you actually bring storage fees down by turning over that product and only ordering what you need for the month.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so funny. Like, you guys immediately, you obviously knew the answer to that question, like, because I didn't even think about it from the private label perspective of having to carry all that inventory. But yeah, like, we only stock 30 days of inventory. So like our inventory levels are always extremely small.
Right.
Yeah,
but that's a good point about, I'd rather pay the FBA fulfillment fees than use my precious time to fulfill all that. But I guess if you like it, we actually went to one Amazon event where this guy was talking about how he was a successful seller. And he's like, I personally like doing the fulfillment. I run a warehouse. I have a crew. My kids come help out. It's good training for them, work ethic, all that kind of stuff. I really like using my hands and getting away from the computer. And we're like, hey man, it's working out for you. Keep it up, right? I don't want to work in a warehouse all day, but if that's good for you, to each his own.
Right. I mean, with some people, I think it's like a strength. And if it's a strength, by all means, if warehousing were a strength for me, like I think I would try to build my business more on the back of warehousing and fulfillment and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just, I feel like it's one of those things you just play to your strength, and warehousing is not ours. So
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
I want to get the Facebook group. I want to get a link to the Facebook group. Do you have the Facebook group link real quick so we can get people into that Facebook group? for any of these
Or
additional
do they
questions
only
that
get
we.
it when they sign up for the workshop?
Well, I think there's
that's-
Right. Like as soon as they sign up, they get the I don't actually know the link off the top of my head.
Sign up for the workshop and then you
It's
get
a private.
okay, good. Yeah, so any questions that didn't get answered, you can go ahead and post those questions in the Facebook group. Just go over and sign up for the free workshop, and then go and sign up for the Facebook group, and you can post any additional questions there, so we make sure that all your questions get answered. We've got to run. Thanks so much for
You
taking
guys
the
are
time.
awesome. Very inspirational.
Well, sorry about being late. Like my other computer, it said my microphone wasn't plugged in. I couldn't find it, so I went and got a laptop. But really do appreciate it. You guys are always amazing, and I love being on with you guys.
All right,
Thanks
guys.
so much.
And Eric, I know he's not showing on the screen anymore, but thanks for.
I think he disappeared.
Yeah, I think he tipped off. But thanks so much for coming on and sharing what you know.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All
See you
right.
next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you guys.